So my name is Dale Krupp, and I'm the Director of Economic and Neighborhood Development for the town of Hamden, and I want to welcome you to this information session. So we have a couple speakers tonight, who I'll introduce in a minute. I am the Director of Economic Development. People typically think that economic development people are all about helping businesses, which of course that's a big part of what we do. But I'm most interested in the economic prosperity of all the citizens as well. People who pay taxes, live in houses and apartments, as well as helping businesses. So we're here tonight to share information about a workshop series that we'll be doing in 2019. You have the press release that originally went out to about 5,000 households and email addresses. And basically it says, I was trying to think of a catchy title, and so the catchy title is Everyone Gets a Job, and then we had a little bit of help from Pam from the library to embellish that a little bit so you see the name of the sessions. Today is the first of two information sessions for people, parents, kids if they wanted to come. The second one will be Saturday morning at Brundage Library on Circular Avenue. So we want to try to use the library system if possible. Just some housekeeping. He'll be videotaping this. He will not have it on your face, so we don't need to get a release from you. If you ask a question later on, we'll just have you repeat the question for the camera. So that's what we're doing today. So before I introduce the guests, as the press release says, we are trying to meet the needs of businesses and residents. And the most important need of businesses by far is trying to find a qualified workforce. For years, we assumed that businesses are mostly concerned about taxes and debt and town finances and things like that, state issues, and those are certainly things they're very concerned about. But finding the qualified people to work at their businesses in virtually any area of the Hamden economy is the thing I hear the most. I've been here 19 years. I've worked for 5 mayors, and Republican, Democrats, doesn't matter. The most concerning thing for businesses is finding a qualified workforce. So on the second page of this, the back page, are a list of the different panels we will be having in 2019. I wanted to have these two information sessions to be able to get people's interest piqued and then videotape them, of course, so people can watch them online if they couldn't come to either of the session, to get an idea of what we're going to be doing. Because we're really interested in making sure that that 8th grader that's sitting there bored in class, or whatever they're doing in class, in 15 years they're going to be running the town. They're going to be running the world. They'll be working, they'll be buying houses, raising families, and all those sort of things. So we want to make sure that every young person has a job. Our target audience is 5th through 8th graders for this series, but certainly any child in school is welcome to come to this, in high school, or even, if there's a 4th grader that's interested. These are the major economic drivers in Hamden. Healthcare is big, employment, manufacturing, and all the other ones that are listed. STEM, and Dan's going to talk about that tonight. So these are going to be what the panels are going to be about. There'll be experts in the field. Most importantly, there'll be representatives from the public school system, private school system, but mostly there'll be representatives from businesses themselves to tell you and your children where the job market is and what kinds of skills they're going to need and what their earning abilities will be, especially if they're thinking about going to high school, whether it's going to be the public Hamden High School or private option or some of the magnet options there are in the region. So we want to make sure that they have the right information because everybody should have a job. And that's really the premise of this. I thought I would sort of wet your whistle with this by inviting 2 guests tonight. Chris Reardon from the Workforce Alliance. She's going to talk a little bit about the job market for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to turn it over to Dan Cocciola from the Hamden High School, who's going to talk about the high school initiatives and a special program called STEM, which he'll talk about. So let me just turn it over to Chris, and we'll come back to you in a little bit.
Thank you, and thank you, Dale, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I talk to a lot of different audiences, but audiences like this who can actually have an impact on the future workforce is probably one of my favorite audiences. So thank you for your time coming out this evening and learning about some of what we have to offer. As Dale mentioned, my name is Chris Reardon, and I am the manager of strategic development at Workforce Alliance. We are the Regional Workforce Development Board serving South Central Connecticut. Hamden is one of 30 towns in my region, and we see about 16,000 job seekers in our 4 American job centers in the region every year. I've been doing this job for 40 years, and some people might say that I have some pretty undefined skill sets, unlimited skill sets, but I like to think of it as an evolution of my own passion towards putting people to work and having them really finding jobs that they are happy in, that they are successful in, and that they can grow in with themselves and their families. I am not a native of Connecticut, but I've lived here for almost 30 years, and it's in my best interest to keep local people in this state. We've had a tremendous outmigration of individuals in the last 10 years in this state right now, and it's presented a very interesting set of circumstances. Just a few years ago, we had a fairly high unemployment rate in the state and in this region as well. And a lot of jobs went south, or they were very, very hard to fill because they were highly technical, or a lot of people were out of work because they had been laid off. Right now, the unemployment rate is hovering right around 4%. And for economists like myself, full employment is 3%. So what's happening right now is that there are a lot more jobs that are available in this region and in the state than there are workers right now that are equipped to take them. You might ask, well, what jobs are in decline? There's really actually only one sector that's in decline right now, and that's the government sector. Why is that? Well, primarily because the state has really, really shrunk in its number of workers that were either offered early retirement or chose to leave otherwise. And in fact, if you go into Hartford and Wethersfield and Cromwell and some of these other areas where the state offices are, you see these big politburos right now that are rather empty, where hundreds of workers used to be. There might only be 50 now. But virtually every other sector, and it's really important that you understand this, every other sector is growing or accepting new jobs or new roles. And part of that is because of innovation, because because companies are locating here, because companies are expanding and they're deciding to stay here. Some of it is the lack of outsourcing now. Companies are taking their businesses from overseas back to this country, and particularly in Connecticut as well. And new companies are coming in. So let me give you some examples of what's happening right now. Y'all know that Amazon's going to open in the spring in North Haven, and if you go up Route 5, you can really see how big and how massive it is. There's going to be about 2,000 jobs that are going to be in Amazon, and they're going to be all the way from basically logistics jobs, which would be taking something off of a conveyor belt and putting it on a pallet, all the way up to the support jobs, meaning the accounting jobs and the information technology jobs and the machine repair jobs and the truck drivers and the people that have to feed individuals, because there'll be a full service cafeteria that will be there. There is actually going to be classrooms in there, because if you work at Amazon for a year, you can actually take training, and the training doesn't even have to be in an Amazon related kind of thing, so you might actually work at Amazon, but actually go to school at Amazon for a healthcare job. That has happened in a lot of other parts of the country. That's going to happen in the spring. There's also an Amazon sortation center, which you may or may not know about. It's in Wallingford. It's right on Research Parkway in Wallingford, and at any given time, there's somewhere between 700 and 1,800 jobs in that facility as well. So again, and it's Christmas time, they're hiring right now. FedEx in Middletown, when they first opened up, they estimated that they were going to look at 500 jobs over there, and FedEx has pretty much exploded. They're right now hiring between 700 and 900 jobs. Again, that's available. And those guys they're all paying not minimum wage anymore. They're all paying at least $15 an hour to start. Masonic in Wallingford. If you've been up there, it's a city. On any given day, on any given week, there's between 100 and 150 jobs available. Some of them are direct care, the nursing, taking care of people jobs, but a whole lot of those are allied health jobs, radiology, EKG people, lab folks, dining room people. You can live on the grounds of Masonic Care. So there's all this sort of property maintenance and property management kinds of jobs as well that's there. Interestingly enough, the hospitality industry is right now the third largest industry. The hospitality industry has really, really taken off in this region. And you've got a new hotel that's opened up on Whitney Avenue. Has it opened up yet? On Whitney Avenue? No, but it's about to open up. However, there are hotels that are opening or being planned more in New Haven, in East Haven, in Branford, in North Haven, and in West Haven within the next 3 to 4 years. And between all of those hotels, there's about 900 to 1,000 jobs. So, again, there are front of the house jobs, there are back of the house jobs, there are engineering and plumbing jobs that are there as well. There are information technology jobs, and then there are financial services jobs that are all under the auspices of those hotels. Strangely enough, also beer has become very, very, very popular in this area, and craft breweries are opening up all over the place, okay? I had to really get knowledgeable about the beer industry. And no, I don't drink beer, just so that you know. But I asked, well, how do you hire people? I'm thinking that all these folks are people that make beer in their garage. No. Most of these folks hire microbiologists with at least a college degree from Quinnipiac, from UConn, from Sacred Heart. Okay, so highly, highly technical jobs making beer. Again, those folks, partially manufacturing, partially hospitality, they have to have financial services in order to run their business as well. So they're opening up like crazy, and they're all doing very, very, very well as well. Let me talk a little bit quickly about manufacturing, because 5 years ago, we were all saying, oh, manufacturing is dead, and it's never coming back. Well, that was before all of what I said earlier is starting to happen now. Manufacturing is alive. It is well. Electric boat, let me just say, I know it's in Groton, it's in New London, and it's an hour away, but just as an example right now, between 2011 and 2017, they hired 10,000 new employees. 10,000. They need 1,600 employees a year just to maintain their staffing levels, because the folks that work there are getting too old to work. And it's a physical job. They make submarines. And they're retiring, and they can retire very well. And they figure that 34% are going to be of their current workforce will be retired within the next 10 years. So they need to replace people. Okay, they have job orders for the Columbia-class submarines through 2037. Okay, it's daunting to think how many people just Electric Boat can absorb alone. I had an HR person from Electric Boat say to me, where can a person with a high school diploma and nothing beyond that take a 6-week course in welding and earn $60,000 a year? I'm like, sign me up. I'm too old. But Had I known that and had I been a parent of an 8th or 9th grader, I might have tried to guide my son a little bit differently. You know, it's not necessarily all about college or no college. It may be job now, a little bit of college while you're working, and maybe a lot of college later. And guess what? As a parent, you won't have to pay because your company will. As a person that just finished paying 4 years of tuition at UConn for my son, that sounds pretty good to me. I don't know. You know, Pratt & Whitney is the same thing. Pratt & Whitney is eating up engineers all over the state. They basically have first dibs on UConn right now as well, and they're going to continue. Some of you might have heard that Pratt & Whitney, as their parent company, United Technologies, is just splitting off their Carrier air conditioning and their Otis elevators, and they acquired Rockwell Aerospace. And I was asked this morning, what do you think about that? I said, I think that's a great idea, because this is just going to put them physically and otherwise into the stratosphere. They're going to continue to need more people. And they're headquartered here in Connecticut. Their world headquarters is in Farmington. It's not anywhere else. It's here. So they're going to bring all that technology, and they're going to bring all of that innovation, and they're going to expand. They continue to need more people as well. Even a little bit more locally, Honeywell in North Branford, looking to fill 300 jobs. They want to they have enough work to put on a third shift. They have 300 jobs right now. They can't fill them. Okay. Ulbrich Steel in North Haven, steady hiring. Hire about 15 manufacturing workers a year. Lester Company in Branford is an information technology and data mining company. Very, very interesting. Has 70 openings as well. Hill Health Center in New Haven, ongoing health care and administrative support. Healthcare is probably number one in Hamden in terms of sectors, and you know, there are healthcare jobs all along the spectrum for everyone. If you want to be in direct contact with a patient and see all the blood and the guts and all of that, there's one career pathway to go. If you want to have minimum contact with a patient and just help them get better in another way, there's the allied health cluster group. And then there's the sort of health support kinds of work. Again, the financial people, the information technology people, the medical billing and coding roles that need to be filled as well. And then even the very, very entry level, which is certified nursing assistant and home health aide, which is a beginning of could be a beginning of a really, really strong career pathway towards any of those other areas that I talked about before. That's not going to go away. Healthcare is going to continue to go well. There's also pharmacy tech. CVS right now is looking to fill probably 200 pharmacy technicians right now in the state. You have to pass an exam. You have to pass a test, but there is training that's available, and you can get to that training and to that certification in a very short period of time. You don't have to go to college. That's just a taste of this. We have started a manufacturing pipeline program to start filling some of these needs. You'll hear more about it. We're going to have our first cohort in February. We're accepting applications now. You can go to our website. And one last thing, I know Dale's done it. I've left this here for you to take. This is our schedule of our American Job Center workshops and hiring events. You can go to our website. Every week we publish this. You can come to our workshops. You can come meet with some employers that are hiring. We do this every week. You can go Hamden, but there's more action, I would say, in New Haven if you can get to El Grasso Boulevard. We'd love to have you. We'd love to answer any of your questions. I'm staying around for the whole presentation, so I'm happy to talk to you about careers. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. You know, when Dale put this together, this to me is really the kickoff of the talking publicly about the work we've been doing at Hamden Public Schools for the last year and a half. And so I'm Dan Cochiola. I'm the Director of Counseling and Tech Ed for Hamden Public Schools. The mission of my position is student outcomes. Whether a child's choosing to go to college or into a career path or some amalgamation of those two things, that's where this meets. And we know we do a great job of affording students opportunities for post-secondary college, but we weren't always sure if we did a great job of making kids aware of what career opportunities were out there. And I think Chris really highlighted, and Dale as well, over the last couple of years, things in Connecticut have started to change really dramatically. So that right now there's 16,000 unfilled manufacturing jobs in New Haven County. Between Sikorsky, Electric Boat, and Pratt & Whitney, the expectation is 10,000 jobs in the next 10 years. I'm sorry, 100,000 jobs in the next 10 years. These are really significant numbers. I sat at a training with the president for Connecticut Aeronautical Association, and he said every middle schooler in Connecticut right now can have a 40-year career in the aerospace industry alone in Connecticut. And these are middle-class jobs. And so it's been a learning curve for me to get into manufacturing facilities and to think about what was perceived as maybe in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s as gritty and grimy and dirty. It's now lean, clean, and green. And it truly is. These are high-tech positions. And so how do we position our students to be able to access those? And how do we make sure we're part of filling that need? If we're talking about 16,000 jobs right now and 100,000 in the next 10 years, then the community colleges who are doing a great job of trying to fill that void, and the Voc Tech school system that's doing a great job of trying to fill that void, they just can't possibly meet capacity. And so what's going to happen is either Connecticut's going to import workers or outsource the work. And about a year and a half ago, the Meriden Record Journal ran an article featuring Sal Menzo, the superintendent of schools for Wallingford. And Sal talked about the work that Wallingford was doing to move in that direction. And I had a conversation with Jody Gola, our superintendent in Hamden, after that article came out. And we talked about trying to figure out how we in Hamden can move in that direction to support our kids. And so I began to look around the state and to see how other comprehensive high schools were meeting this need. And there's a model out there called the P16, the P-Tech 16 model. And it's out of Brooklyn, New York, and it's a tremendous modeled program whereby students can currently earn a high school diploma and an associate's degree in college. And there's a program in Connecticut, NECO, out of Norwalk, that has been doing it for 6 years and has graduated 2 cohorts of students, concurrently associate's degree and high school diploma. Danbury has a program, New London has a program. So that model made sense to me, especially in light that Gateway Community College has a manufacturing engineering program that's part of this feeder system into the manufacturing sector. But not only that, a student who graduates with an associate's degree from Gateway has completed their first 2 years of college anywhere. So a student can parlay that experience to competitive college admissions, to the workforce, or Central Connecticut has an articulation agreement in their engineering program with Gateway, whereby it recognizes as the first 2 years, and a student finishes with an engineering degree in 4 years. A tremendous asset potentially for our students. And Dr. Brody, who was the president of Norwalk Community College in Housatonic, is now the president of Housatonic and Gateway combined. And so he really believes in this. And Mark Kaczynski, the dean of student affairs and academics at Gateway, also really believed in this. And our superintendent's office. And we reached out to the town of Hamden, and Dale jumped on board. And we reached out to the manufacturing community, and Jamie Scott from the New Haven Manufacturing Association has jumped on board, and so we created a partnership. And the model is students will complete their high school diploma and an associate's degree in manufacturing engineering concurrently while enrolled in 4 years of high school. The first 3 years will be completed at Hamden High School's campus, and the final year will be completed at Gateway's campus. New Haven Manufacturing has promised tuition reimbursement to cover whatever cost wouldn't be covered on campus, as well as on-site learning experiences for students that require internships. The Department of Labor has created a program of pre-apprenticeship. So getting somebody under 18 onto a work site had been a challenge in the old economy. But in the new economy, getting a 16 or 17-year-old onto a work site through the pre-apprenticeship program is now acceptable. And so we've built this program to roll out for school year 2019-2020. On February 1st, we're going to publish our applications to our 8th graders, and we're going to accept a cohort of 25 students into the associate's degree program. In subsequent years, we'll grow it to 50 students per year. One of the significant things that had to happen to bring this together, however, was about a year ago, Jody Goller had been working hard on securing a grant from the state of Connecticut for a STEM academy at Hamden High School. And last winter, last December, January, Mike DiAugustino came through and was able to get us $500,000. And that $500,000 is how we're retrofitting our physical space, is how we're buying the CNC machinery, is how we're buying the CAD simulating machines, is how we're getting all the equipment and tools we need. The architects were in last month. The space is being redesigned now, and it's going to be open for business in the summer. So we're ready to roll. Now, just a couple thoughts. Who's it for? My answer is it's for every kid. If your kid has taken Algebra 2 in 8th grade, then they're going to be able to jump in this, excel to calculus, and really impact outcome measures in a variety of ways that's up to them. If your kid is going to struggle to get to Algebra 2 in high school, we're going to offer them a lot of support, but we're going to be able to get them on the off-ramp to, if not the associate in manufacturing engineering, the certificate in CAD or quality control, which are workforce recognized certificates, directly into the field. Talking to manufacturers in the region, the starting salary is somewhere in the $40,000 to $50,000 range, but the expected salary by the end of the first year is a $70,000 to $90,000 range. So you could expect a 19-year-old student, recent student, to be making potentially middle-class earnings. So this, I think, has a huge impact on what the outcomes can be for our kids here in Hamden. And I also think this is a model that if the state of Connecticut needs to fill a capacity need for a workforce, potentially can work at other comprehensive high schools. There's a variety of other skills and trainings, NIMS training, which is metalworking skills, welding skills, that all are part and parcel of it. But what we did is we took the Gateway's manufacturing engineering program, overlaid it with the high school program, and in 4 years, a student will concurrently complete both. A student can take a 5th year, a student can choose to get off as a certificate, and we created a caveat whereby a student who didn't get accepted into that original cohort in 8th grade can jump into a cohort 9th to 10th and complete it in a 5th year. We created another on-ramp whereby a student can go in as late as junior year. Maybe they didn't know they wanted to do this early on. And in that case, they could move over to the certificate program and get a certificate in CAD or quality control. One of the things we were talking about before is Luann Galindo is the director of adult ed for Hamden Public Schools. And so we're going to have this facility in the summer that our students are going to use from 7:30 a.m. to 3. But I don't want it to go unused in the afternoon and evening. And so for our adult ed population, there's absolutely no reason why we're not going to continue to run the program to fill the workforce needs. That's what we're doing in Hamden Public Schools. And I'm really excited, proud of it. And I actually have copies of the program here. And this is top secret now, guys. I go to the Board of Ed next week for their final approval. So you'll see it before it gets the final stamp of approval. But this is, without a doubt, what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, so as you could tell, the job market is really humming right now. Our public school system has a lot of exciting things happening. The name of this program is Everybody Gets a Job. So we're starting with the younger kids, but if this is successful, which I know it's going to be, I know this is really a critical thing to have a good paying job. We're going to definitely move this into adult ed and some other categories of folks in town. But I do want to talk a little bit about each panel. As I said before, we'll have the education side of it, but we're also going to have businesses on every single panel. Healthcare. Chris talked a lot about healthcare. It's the fastest growing part of the economy in Hamden. I'm 62 years old and I have 8 doctors, and I'm healthy. So if you look at the demographics throughout the town, Hamden is an aging community like many others in the state of Connecticut. All of us have, I got an elbow guy, a neck guy, a shoulder guy, a couple ladies in there somewhere. But the point is that everybody needs health care. Anticipated by 2022, 20% increase in jobs of where they are as of 2016. Manufacturing, I think Dan and Chris both covered it extremely well. Hamden's manufacturing economy is extremely strong in aerospace as well. We have 2 major manufacturers of aerospace, but we have a lot of food production. Okay, we have Leuzzi cheese, we have Elm City cheese, we have a couple other food production, and there's a supply chain that's attached to those manufacturing facilities: trucking, packing, shipping, everything. Vocational options. How many of you think it's hard to find a plumber or an electrician when you really need one? The answer is pretty much everybody. So when I kind of rolled out the concept of this to one of the civic associations, people really wanted to hear about how do you become a plumber. So we're going to have a panel on the vocational side of things. We will have an actual plumber, a manufacturer. We will have Eli Whitney Technical School, which, if you know anything about it, has a tremendous expansion recently. Only 15% of the total student population of that school are Hamden residents. So we want to make it more, make it more aware for kids that want to use their hands and work in the trades. Science, engineering, and technology and math, that's the STEM, that's the cohort group. We're going to be, among a very few towns in the entire state that are going to have this program. We're going to have somebody with a STEM business on the panel. Dan will be on the panel, of course, and we'll have other folks. Gateway is going to be part of all of what we're doing. Back to manufacturing for 1 minute, and the trades, they're all kind of related. She was talking about electric boat needing, 1,400 employees or something like that. It's like 1,100 welders. Welders is one of the hottest jobs going. Welders make between $25 and $100 an hour, depending if they're, what they're welding. Underwater welders make $100 an hour. It's amazing. So the regional economy affects the Hamden economy. Every industry needs welders in some capacity. So what goes on at Electric Boat is important for us to note. IT, okay, kids all want to be, invent the next app. So we're going to have an app developer at this. We're going to have somebody that does HTML training, and we're going to have somebody talk about artificial intelligence, and there's probably going to be something new by January that we never even heard of before, right? Sustainability, environmental science, another area of growth. We will have folks that are involved in environmentally related industries on that panel. We will have the Sound School from New Haven on that panel. They have an environmental science and aquaculture program. They're technically a VOTEC school. They're not. People think they're a magnet school. They're actually a VOTEC school. Entrepreneurship, about people that might want to go into business. We'll have a panel specifically about that. We have one of the best programs for entrepreneurs in Hamden High School called DECA. They win all kinds of national and international awards, and I work as a mentor to DECA. Brian Anderson is the advisor for the students, and we will have all kinds of information on how to start a business. Some kids want to go the business route. And lastly, we'll have something on job readiness. How many kids do this all day? Look at their phone, right? We're going to have one session specifically on how to work with kids to get them to look people in the eye and have a conversation, how to be ready for a job, how to dress, how to get ready, how to prepare, how to groom themselves, basic stuff, interview skills, money management, all of this is part of being a responsible adult in the job workforce. We will have one panel specifically about that. So these are all the panels that we will have. Some of them might be had twice over the course of 6 months, depending on the interest of parents and students alike. And we will have everything on video so that people that cannot attend for whatever reason will be able to watch this online. Like tonight, they'll be watching this online. So we're going to have them in the library system, at the PTA meetings. I have a couple churches I'm working with. So tonight is only like a beginning introduction to what we plan to do throughout the rest of the school year between January 1st and June. So stay tuned for that and you'll get information. So I'd like to do now is bring up the speakers and see if there's any questions or comments that you have. What kind of questions do we have? Anybody? Yes, sir.
So I guess this would be a question primarily directed at Dan. I mean, so this is just an impressive amount of information that I wish was available to myself and my peers when I was in high school.
Great.
To what extent is this sort of body of knowledge available, for instance, to Hamden High students on a daily basis through interactions with guidance counselors, things like that?
Repeat the question.
So the tremendous amount of information that I'm sharing tonight, your question, if I'm understanding it correctly, is how is this shared between school counselors and students at Hamden High School, and are they getting the breadth of this?
Exactly.
Great. So this particular program, like I alluded to, we are on the cusp of official.
And I should say not even specifically about the
Right.
specific program that you're rolling out, but just
Okay.
generally sort of the range
Yeah.
of opportunities that are available to folks
Yeah.
at sort of many different places, many different avenues for training,
Totally.
et cetera.
So that's our mission, frankly, is informing and advising students and our public. How do we do it? We do it through our website, we do it through weekly emails, we do it through our social media, we do it through parent engagement sessions, whether they be in the evening or in the morning. We do it through student meetings, student interactions. Today, for example, was a Connections Day at the high school, and that's a non-instructional block of time, about 35 minutes. And each counselor met with about 25 of their 10th graders today to deliver a lesson on academic planning. And so how do we do it? We do it through those kinds of group actions. We do it through individual planning sessions. I've been a counselor for 20 years, and the biggest challenge is a math teacher has a student in front of them every day for 40 minutes. And if you don't get it today, I'm going to come back and revisit it tomorrow. As a counselor, with most students, you're going to get a half a dozen interactions in a year. And with some, you're going to get many more. And with a couple, you're going to get less. And to have a message that every student walks away with is more challenging in that environment. But how we overcome that, I think, is through relationships. I think it's through the parent, the grandparent, the child, the teacher, trusting the counselor. And so then the kid independently comes down and says, hey, I heard. The parent hears something, whether it be from one of Dale's great newsletters, and will call and say, hey, I heard. How does this work? And that's the level of communication that I'm trying every day to drive. And some days I do it better than others.
So one of the things that we do in this kind of partnership is we all operate in our own little world, is to try to integrate more of what Dan is doing, what Chris has to offer in programming and job fairs and things into what kind of information sharing that we do. So I have a constant contact mailing list that has over 4,000 emails, so everything that I do related to anything that I do goes out to 4,000 households. And like he said, he has a certain amount of interactions with kids. Do they tell their parents about it? We don't know. Stuff goes home with them. Does it really go home with them? I have 2 young adults myself. They have a head shaking no over here. But the point is that by really working together, I'm very involved in the STEM grant and the STEM program with Dan in the public school system. It's an important part of economic development. So we have to keep telling these stories of why it's important, not just for the students, but for that kid who's in 8th grade or a sophomore now who's going to buy an 1,800 square foot house in 10 years. That's why it's important to work together and to have that relationship. And I've known Dan now for a couple of years. I've known Chris for like a really long time, at least 20 years. And we even have the same birthday month. That's all we're going to say about that. But we have to work together and communicate that information. If not through the school system, and Dan tells me what's going on, the town can definitely participate. It's not just about the businesses, as I said, the very first thing I said, it's about the economic prosperity of all Hamden citizens. Yes?
I'm an educator, which I'm curious to have some stats on how that's growing right now or not, because it doesn't seem like it's growing. But at any rate, I'm wondering about, I have a child right now, my son is in Hamden High School. And when I think with regards to the bell curve and, there being some students that are, on a really low end, and then there's others that are on the higher end, and then you got this big chunk, of, sort of, kind of, I just perform. I'm not horrible, but I'm not great. And my experience as an educator, I previously ran a charter school. And when you're looking at situations like, having 50 slots available for a high school that has like, 1,500 kids in it, something like that, what that usually looks like is there being a criteria, for those 50 slots that kind of eliminates those students that
Right.
are not on the higher performing end. So I'm just really curious to know, with it being jobs for all, like how are all targeted? Because, what I mean?
So-
God, no one will hear me because my son is one of those that.
Yeah. Your concern is my concern. And so in first steps, 25 is the initial cohort. And it's because we want to make sure we do everything right. And so we have to start small in year 1. The cohorts following that are going to be 50. And 50 to me is not 50 out of 1,500, it's 50 out of 350 because it's 50 per grade level.
Okay.
Right? So that changes the dynamics of the students who actually would be interested in versus, and we're going to do a lottery. We're going to do a weighted lottery. We want to make sure we have representation from all demographic groups. We want to make sure we have representation from all ability levels. We want to make sure we have representation of males and females. It's important to us that the cohort both helps lift the student to the place and the student's able to take advantage of every aspect of what's great about it. And I don't think I want to turn my back on either one of those groups. And so the only fair way then is phase 1 is a weighted lottery. I think after students are accepted through the lottery, they're going to have to choose, okay, do I really want to follow through with this? Because the one thing I'll say is it's rigorous. It is something that I'm not sure my 15-year-old self would have stepped up to. And I'm more impressed by young people today than young people of our age. But
That's valid.
yeah,
And I think that I kind of want to follow that, and then I'll be quiet. But the next thought that I have in that, though, is that legitimately recognizing that your 15-year-old self could not manage that, and I'm guessing that probably my 15-year-old self would not have either. So realistically looking at that, if we're dealing with individuals that we know are in that fatter part of the bell curve, they probably look more like you and I. So if they look more like you and I, what kinds of sort of backfilling, preparatory type things can we do to ensure that we're going to arrive in the place where we're trying to go?
So I have the program map here, and the question is the backfilling, and what I really hear you saying is support.
Yes.
And I have the program mapping here, and every year we have a course that we call HECA SSP, HECA Student Success Planning. This is a course that students are going to be mandated to take within the program that's going to give them the supports, whether it's connecting to the college classes, whether it's understanding the manufacturing aspect, whether it's understanding getting out into the community, into workforces and what that looks like in terms of the soft skills that I heard Dale mention. That's what's embedded in that course. But there's other pieces as well, and this is what I think Norwalk does so well. It's a community within the program, all right? And you know, you have the teacher, you have a counselor, you have an administrator, you have the support staff built around just those kids in that program so that they have an identification of being part of it and knowing who the resources are. That goes back to your question in some ways, because the kid now knows who the resources are more intimately by breaking the big school into a smaller school for those kids. But now let's get to the functional. Between sophomore and junior year, we're doing a math boot camp because I want every kid to have the ability to access that higher level content. And so what does that look like? That looks like at Gateway Community College, a kid needs to AccuPlace, that's the placement test, into a certain level math class going into their junior year. So we're going to do a 2-week intensive prepping the students for that test. And those are the kinds of things that we're looking at in terms of getting all boats to rise. How's it going to play out in practice? I mean, that's part of why I want to start with 25. Because some of what you're talking about, I won't know, right, until we're doing it.
I'm going to add to what Dan is saying. Let me just grab your microphone
Yes.
there. So, thank you.
Yes.
So that's why we're covering all the economic sectors. STEM and manufacturing are, you know, one aspect of the Hamden economy, but healthcare, hospitality, all of those other options for the group in the middle that you're referring to that may not have the math skills or may not want to do it, even just want to do it. They just want a good job. So that's why by doing these panels, we're going to listen to businesses. Historically speaking, government has supported job training. And if there was money to have job training, there was job training. But if there's no money, you know, it's a challenge. Chris has been incredible, and Workforce Alliance has been incredible at getting funds. What we're trying to do is to get the business side. My prediction after all these years of being in this business is that business is going to drive the job market, not government, and not education either. It's business that's going to have to invest. And you'd be surprised if you talk to different CEOs, they'll tell you they're really ready to put their money where their mouth is in the workforce training area. If Warren Buffett and the Google guys want to start their own healthcare company, you might have read about that, because they're fed up with the government, how they handle healthcare. I think business is probably going to pony up and start to get involved financially and trying to train the people they need to train. And I think that partially answers your question. Healthcare facilities are desperate to find CNAs. They're basically stealing from each other because there's so few, and they're part-time people generally. So to answer your question, the public school system has a lot to offer, and then the business community is going to have to kick in. And once we finish these panels, there will be a body of recommendations that come out of that we can then partner up with the school system to continue. And that may include some kids that will go to Eli Whitney and become plumbers, because you could always need a plumber.
Let me just also add, I mean, there is a lot of, it's always been said that knowledge is power, but let me tell you, it's never been more powerful than in the labor market. You know what you know by what you see, and what you often see is the end product, the finished product. The labor market is really, it's organic. It starts at the subatomic level. There's 100 decision points that have to be made before you get the food that you need to, that you're going to eat at your restaurant. And how many people and how many jobs, you know, really, really participate in you getting your plate full of hot food, you know, at a local restaurant and making it taste good and make you want to come back. There are literally hundreds of roles in that. And you know, I think that Dale did a pretty brilliant job in naming this whole series, Everyone Gets a Job, because everybody has something that they're good at and something that they're passionate at. And without knowledge and without information, young people are not going to find out, or they may not ever find out until they're much later on in their career, and they might not be that successful in the labor market if they don't really understand what they're passionate about. When I was younger, when I was first starting out in this business, I would see job seekers all the time, and they'd say to me, Chris, you know, I'll take any job, and I'd say, depending upon the season, oh, okay, I've got a job, digging a ditch. You can start tomorrow. If it was winter, I'd say, I have a job shoveling snow. You can start tomorrow. And they'd say to me, oh, I don't want that job. I said, all right, now we know what you don't want. Let's start talking about what you want to do and what you're good at. Do you want to work with your hands? What kind of physical shape are you in? You know, do you understand logic? Do you like to draw? How creative are you? You know, as we start with these panels, hopefully the people that come here will start seeing themselves and their families and their networks to maybe light a fire under young people to pursue some of these different career pathways in these different sectors. And remember what I said, the only industry right now, the only sector that's slowing down is the government industry. So conceivably, there could be a job for everyone, unless you want to be a bureaucrat. And trust me, I did. We're bureaucrats. You don't want to do. You don't want to do that too much. But the challenge for the community is to spread this information and to understand the organic part of it. STEM alone could be a whole, thousands and thousands of jobs, but it could be something else too, but you have to find it.
I think that what we're trying to do ultimately is create an option for all kids. Some kids are ready to go to this STEM academy, and it'll be a great thing for the economy of Hamden. Some kids may not be ready for 3 or 4 more years later because they're not mature enough. It's okay not to go to college right out of high school if you're not ready. Or it's better to go to Gateway for 2 years, work for a while. I have a daughter who just graduated from college, and she wanted to go to grad school, and we said, absolutely not. You have to work. And already she's changing her thinking on what she's going to do because she has to get life experience. The only way to do that is to link employers to families with our aid to do that, and that's the concept of what we're trying to do next year. Any other comments or questions? Yes?
Well, what I wanted to comment, it kind of carries on both ends. How much will this be impacting as a parent and as a business owner? How will this impact special needs children when it comes down to your autism or your special needs students that are, within I have a special needs student that's in Hamden Public Schools, but I also have a special needs that's in Hamden Middle. So where are these kind of taking place, and how is that going to, as far as challenge business owners and the job markets, how is that going to even, be inviting as far as job training, because you're talking in that respect.
Right. So the question was, for the folks who are watching this on video, what provisions or how will this impact folks with special needs, young people or older, that are in the job market that could fulfill a need? It's a great question we don't have the complete answer to, but we have something called a workforce cluster that meets about 2 or 3 times a year. Chris attends, and Dan attended, I think, the last one. And what we do is we invite all the employers that, sort of the middle people that employ folks with special needs. So you have Easter Seals and ACEs and, a few, Sarah and a few of the other ones that deal with folks with disabilities. And I think to create partnerships, there are companies like Walgreens that actually have an active program. Chris probably knows probably the most about this. But basically, we're, to the extent possible, we need to include they're a big part of our community. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I mean, I think, what we've gotten into is working with Department of Rehab Services and other agencies to offer additional work supports. And it's embedded in the American Job Centers and what we do. We've worked with kids that are in school. We've worked with young people that are out of school. We've worked with young adults with special needs. People come with barriers to employment, and especially in this economy, with this almost full employment. It could be an academic barrier. It could be a transportation barrier. It could be a child care barrier. It could be an opioid abuse barrier. We're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of that these days. Or it could be, a special needs barrier. We have the ability to address those barriers either with our own programming or in partnership with other agencies. And we know employers that are friendly to serving individuals with barriers. And the challenge is to make sure that we're matching employment and training in a manner of some way that is consistent with what this individual wants to do. Again, everybody has a passion. We just have to figure it out.
There's so many different populations that need jobs, sort of like your question about the cohort group and the size of it. What about all the other kids? Why are we just, people will tell you that the most important segment of the population in the job market are people that are out of, they're in their late 20s or early 30s. So this is a starting point. I think that's the point that Chris is trying to make there. And also we have, folks that are ex-offenders, we have refugees, we have immigrants, we have non-English speaking folks. Everybody needs a job. But we're starting with the children because honestly, the way this is going, they call it the gray tsunami, I believe, with people that are going to retire. Somebody's got to fill these jobs. So we're starting with the kids because they're the ones that are really going to start taking these jobs in 10 years. All right, I have my business card. We have lots of handouts. We're going to email you everything that we talked about. Any final comments from our guests tonight? Dan or Chris? No? But I really thank you very much for coming. Thank you to the Hamden Public Library System for hosting us. And if you have any other questions, I have a card here. You could please email me. Please attend these workshops. Tonight is just information only. We haven't even gotten to the workshops yet. But thank you for coming.